Greetings, kindred friend. I invite you to quiet your heart for a moment and remember a certain afternoon when you had just left a conversation, but instead of feeling relieved, you found yourself strangely exhausted. That fatigue did not come from speaking for too long, but from the fact that you spent your entire mental energy just trying to explain yourself. You explained your life choices, explained hidden emotions, or labored to clarify intentions that someone accidentally misunderstood. You did all those things not to win an argument, nor to flaunt your ego, but sometimes only because of the singular desire to be understood. But then, after all those justifications, you realized with a shock that your soul was not any lighter. On the contrary, it became heavier and more disturbed. Under the wisdom of the Buddha, this urge to explain does not actually come from a need for sincere communication. It originates from a shackle called attachment. We are attached to how the world perceives us. We are attached to the craving for social acceptance, and we cling to a perfect image that we believe we are obligated to protect at all costs. When that image is threatened by a word or a glance, our mind immediately turns life into an invisible courtroom where we play both the poor defendant and the exhausted lawyer, constantly presenting evidence to prove our own dignity. But each of those explanations is silently taking away the life essence and the peace that inherently exists within you. The world-honored one once reminded us, not everything in this world requires an explanation, especially to those who are already unwilling to listen. Learning to be silent is not avoidance or weakness. It is the pinnacle of serenity and wisdom. In our talk today, I want to share with you things in life that become much more powerful and precious when protected in stillness. When you courageously stop explaining them, you will see your life energy miraculously return. Your mind becomes as calm as a ripple-less lake, and a deep peace will begin to nourish your soul. There are 7 sacred things that, from now on, you do not need to explain to anyone for them to be right. Let us explore this silent journey of liberation right now. The first thing, personal value. When principles need no echo. Try to observe a wild orchid silently blooming in a deserted valley. That flower does not try to explain its beauty, nor does it labor to justify the pure fragrance it offers to heaven and earth. It simply blooms, whole and serene. The true value of a human being, in fact, operates according to such a silent rhythm. Personal value is one of the most sacred things that we often unintentionally turn into a commodity for debate. The faiths you hold, the moral standards you have spent a lifetime cultivating. They are not ideas to be used for persuasion or proof to the world. They are principles to live by. In the teachings of the Buddha, what truly creates the dignity of a soul does not lie in eloquent proclamations of belief, but in how you treat all things in the simplest moments. A right action, a tolerant gaze, or a silent empathy always carries the weight of 1,000 pounds, saying more than any justification. Dear friend, there is a paradox that few realize. When you try to explain your value too much, you are unintentionally inviting judgment and doubt from the person opposite you. The moment you turn your life principles into an argument, you have given others the right to weigh, measure, and compare them. Something that was inherently clear and solid within you suddenly becomes shaky and blurred just because you crave external consensus. The need to explain often originates from a hidden fear, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being rejected, or the fear of not being important enough in the eyes of others. We mistakenly think that if we do not explain, people will not see our nobility. But the wisdom of mindfulness reminds us, if a value truly belongs to your essence, it needs no evidence. It is like pure gold. Even if it lies deep under filth or is covered by mist, its brilliant nature does not shift. When you courageously stop explaining what you believe is right, you also simultaneously stop trying to prove who you are. You reclaim the energy that was scattered into external affairs to return and nourish your internal integrity. The moment you choose silence over explanation, you will find yourself becoming more majestic and solid than ever. Integrity, when fully ripened, often carries a quiet beauty yet full of transformative power. Let this mantra guide you. Your true value does not need to be explained through words. They need to be manifested through the very life you are living. Tonight, let your spiritual hands loosen, no longer clinging to the need for world recognition. You only need to be yourself, pure and steady, like a high mountain that never needs to explain its stature to the great forest. The second thing, life choices. The solitary path of spirituality. Imagine yourself as a traveler, leisurely walking on a trail amidst the morning mist. On both sides of the road, many people stand watching. They constantly criticize, question, or offer advice on your direction. Someone asks, "Why did you choose this turn? Why start now and not earlier?" Or, "Why did you give up what everyone craves?" In that moment, if you stop to explain to every person, you will forever be stuck in the mist and never reach the destination of your soul. Every choice we make in life, from grand decisions like changing where you live or choosing a job in later years, to small things like how you spend your daily time, all can become a focus for external judgment. Dear friend, the most silent tragedy of humans is that we spend too much life essence explaining our path. When you try to persuade others to understand your choice, you are unintentionally sowing seeds of self-doubt in the soil of your consciousness. The longer the explanation, the more the certainty within you wavers. Under the wisdom of the world-honored one, each life is a distinct flow of causes and conditions. There is no single measure or standard timeline for all sentient beings. Suffering actually sprouts the moment you begin to take your unique life and compare it with the standards of the world. When you live to satisfy the why questions of others, you have unintentionally left your inner home to enter a psychological waiting room where you only feel okay if others nod in agreement. You begin to live according to the scripts society expects, instead of listening to the true voice of your essence. But true liberation lies in the fact that you dare to master the path you walk without a single word of justification. When you courageously stop explaining your choices, you are performing an act of reclaiming sovereignty over your life. You walk more firmly, not because the path ahead suddenly becomes flatter or clearer, but because you have become less swayed by the winds of gossip from the sidelines. You understand that you do not owe the world an explanation for your own peace. When your mind is settled, then even if the path you choose is solitary or different, it is still the most correct path for you. Remember this sacred reminder. Not everyone needs to understand your path for it to be a right choice. Tonight, allow yourself to shed every need to be recognized by the world. Cherish every turn you have passed, every choice you are making with an absolute trust in your own rhythm. Serenity only truly appears when you stop looking in the mirror through the eyes of others and begin to see yourself in the stillness of complete gratitude. The third thing, the process of healing and growth, the power of germinating in silence. Try to take a moment to look at a green sprout gently breaking its shell in the dark earth. That sacred process takes place in absolute silence, where there are no spotlights nor any applause from the world. If we, out of impatience, dig up the soil to observe or introduce it to the whole world, that weak sprout will immediately wither. The growth and healing in your soul also operate according to such a primordial rhythm. Kindred friend, healing is actually the most silent and subtle dialogue between you and your own essence. It is an internal process, quiet, slow, and extremely fragile. There are times you realize you have started to be more tolerant of the past, times you feel your heart soften before an old anger. Those seeds need time to root deeply into the nervous system before they are strong enough to face the storms of public opinion. However, there is a habit we often fall into, being impatient to proclaim our change. When you have just touched a bit of peace, you immediately want to explain to relatives and friends that you are different than before. The very moment you bring that pristine process out to display, you have unintentionally opened the doors of your soul for toxic winds to rush in. Untimely advice, doubt from others, or accidental judgments will strike when your internal strength has not yet had time to form. A newly kindled stability, if shaken by too much external noise, will very easily break, leaving you with a sense of loss and deeper self-doubt than ever. In Buddhist wisdom, true transformation never lies in loud proclamations or flashy appearances. It lies in the recognition repeated every day in silence. It is when you silently water compassion into the parched lands of trauma, when you quietly choose composure over agitation without anyone knowing. Some of the greatest human changes only truly flourish when covered by the protective veil of stillness. Silence at this time is not hiding, but a sacred nourishment for the life essence to circulate most completely. Understand and cherish your inner garden. Do not rush to bring healing wounds out to crave world recognition. Let the results speak for themselves when the time is ripe. When your mind is as steady as an ancient tree, then even if you do not say a word, the world will automatically feel the shade of peace spreading from you. Let this mantra soothe you tonight. Not every growth needs to be spoken in words. There are sacred things that can only grow when protected in absolute silence. Do not let the need to be understood interrupt the journey of returning to yourself. Let the healing process take place as silently as the way snow melts or flowers bloom, leisurely and serene in a flow of causes and conditions. The fourth thing, your past. When ashes need not hold the fire, try to look down at a river lazily flowing in a quiet afternoon. The water you just touched a second ago has now flowed far toward the ocean, and the water before your eyes right now is a completely new presence. Your life also operates according to such a leisurely and constantly changing rhythm. Kindred friend, there is a silent burden we often carry for many decades, the need to explain our past. Perhaps it was the difficult early days when you first set foot in this far land, stumbles in your career, or even mistaken choices in love that, looking back now, you see yourself as very foolish. We often feel urged to explain to our children, friends, or the community the reason why we were once like that, just to hope for sympathy or a nod of approval. Yet, through the lens of mindfulness, the past is actually a version that has completely ended. It is like an old coat you once wore. Whether that coat was magnificent or tattered, at this very moment, it is no longer a part of your flesh. The Buddha taught that humans always change in every kasana, every moment. The you of this moment, with this mindful breath, is absolutely not the person of 10 years ago or even of yesterday. There is a liberating truth I want you to understand. The effort to explain the past is actually the act of using words to tie yourself to a ghost that no longer exists. Every justification for what has passed unintentionally keeps you in old identities, old pains, and old limits that you should have overcome long ago. You are unintentionally providing life essence to memories that should have been left to vanish into the void. When you stop explaining, you are allowing the past to truly sleep in peace. You release yourself to be fully present in the purest now. Do not let the world's view of the past define the sky of your essence right now. You do not owe anyone a clarification for what has receded into the past. When you courageously choose silence over explanation, you will find yourself becoming strangely relieved. You realize that you have the right to be reborn in every breath, without the consent of anyone from the past. Let this mantra become the compass for your freedom. You do not need to explain who you used to become the person you are becoming right now. Tonight, try to open your spiritual palms, gently letting go of the threads linked to closed chapters. Let the past become the layer of silt silently nourishing your wisdom, but never let it become the cage imprisoning your leisurely steps for one more moment. You are here, fresh and whole, and that is more than enough for peace. The fifth thing, your boundaries. When silence is the shield of dignity, observe how you protect the house you reside in a foreign land. You have sturdy doors, surrounding fences, and you know clearly who you welcome into the living room and who you only stand and exchange with on the porch. You do not need to hold a meeting or apologize to anyone for locking your door at night. Yet, there is a painful paradox regarding our soul house. We often leave the door wide open and feel guilty when wanting to establish a limit. Kindred friend, we enter later years with a tolerant heart, always wanting to keep harmony with children in the community. However, kindness without boundaries is just weakness under the guise of faith. The most common habit that makes us lose serenity is trying to explain our boundaries. When you say no to a request that exhausts you, or when you refuse to participate in useless arguments, you often tend to add a string of reasons, justifications, and excuses afterward. We do this because we hope the other person will empathize and agree to allow us to keep our peace. But the very moment you begin to explain too much, you have unintentionally turned your sacred boundary into a negotiation. You are subtly telling the other person, "My limit only has value if you feel my reason is convincing enough." And so, you give them the right to refute, to bargain with your own peace. In the wisdom of mindfulness, a boundary is not an argument. It is a proclamation. A clear boundary does not need justification, because clarity itself carries the full weight of wisdom. Like the shore silently preventing the ocean from invading the land, it does not need to speak to explain why it is there. It simply performs its divine function. When you courageously choose silence over explaining your boundaries, you are performing an act of the highest self-respect. You protect your life essence, not with anger or argument, but with a silent decisiveness. You realize that you do not owe anyone a reason for your need for rest, your need for privacy, or your need for tranquility of the soul. Etch this mantra into your mind. Your boundary does not need anyone's consent to be allowed to exist. Tonight, allow yourself to reclaim the energy lost through unnecessary explanations. Stand firm in your own kingdom of consciousness, calm and majestic. When you no longer need others to agree with how you protect your peace, that is when that peace truly becomes inviolable. The sixth thing, inner peace. When fragrance needs no wind, try to contemplate the image of a high, misty mountain peak amidst the quiet forest. That peak never speaks to justify its height before the storm, nor does it need to explain its stability before passing clouds. It simply stands there, majestic and composed in its own essence. True peace in your soul, if it reaches maturity, will also carry a deep and quiet aura like that mountain peak. Kindred friend, we often fall into a very subtle psychological trap: the need to prove our peace for the world to see. After long years of hard work in a foreign land, when you begin to return to meditation sutras or simply a quieter lifestyle, you often have the psychology of wanting to share, wanting to explain to your children or those around you so they understand that you are very okay, that you have found joy. We do this because of the craving for recognition that the path we are walking is right. Yet, under the wisdom of mindfulness, there is a truth you need to remember. Peace is not a piece of jewelry for you to wear and display. Peace is a deep state of personal experience. When you begin to explain your stillness, you have unintentionally invited disturbances from the outside to rush in. Every justification that I am very relaxed is actually a time you open the door of the inner house for the winds of judgment, comparison, and doubt to blow in. People might ask, what is peace for? Why not be noisy and happy like before? Right when you try to answer those questions, the silence in your heart is broken. You are no longer in peace. You are standing outside to protect it. Understand that. True peace is inherently independent and self-existent. It does not depend on whether others see it existing or not, nor does it need anyone's consent to become the truth. Just like the warmth of tea spreading in the chest, only the one drinking truly feels its intensity. If you are preoccupied with explaining the taste of the tea, you will forget the sweet aftertaste melting on the tip of your tongue. Monks understand a deep wisdom. Peace does not need a shield of words. When your mind is truly settled, your presence itself is a silent sermon, capable of soothing the surrounding space without needing a single word of justification. Let this mantra soothe your consciousness tonight. Peace is something to be felt from within, not something to be protected from the outside. When you courageously stop explaining your joy, you truly possess it. You no longer fear someone taking it away, nor do you need someone to recognize it to feel okay. You are as quiet as deep water, leisurely flowing through life without needing to leave an echo. Silence at this time is the most eloquent proof of a soul that has truly found its harbor, steady and serene before all the agitations of the human world. The seventh thing, your silence, when thunder leads in stillness. Try to quietly contemplate the space between two notes in a piece of music. Without that quiet void, the music would only be chaotic noise. Or look at the vast night sky protecting all things in this foreign land. It is that infinite silent black background that allows the light of the stars to shine. The final thing, also the most powerful thing that a mindful soul needs to learn to protect, is one's own silence. Throughout a lifetime of wandering, we often mistakenly think that silence is a sign of weakness, of resignation, or surrender to adversity. We fear that if we do not speak up, the world will look down on us. If we do not explain, the truth will be buried. But kindred friend, the wisdom of mindfulness points to a completely opposite truth. Silence is not a soulless emptiness. Silence is the pinnacle of clarity. When you reach a spiritual maturity, you will realize you no longer crave to prove anything to anyone anymore. The need to prove is actually a cry for help from an ego trembling due to a lack of self-confidence. A high mountain never needs an echo to affirm its stature. Deep water always flows in absolute stillness. When you truly know who you are, truly believe in the path you are walking, you will see every explanation becomes redundant. Silence at this time is the cloak of self-respect and majesty that no scepter can match. Observe your body whenever an argument breaks out. When you try to explain to win the right side, your heart rate increases, your breath is hurried, and the life essence in you is squeezed to nourish the fire of conflict. However, when you choose silence with compassion, you are cutting off the nourishment of discord. An insult, if it does not meet a response, will automatically fall to the ground like a dry branch without fire. Stopping the explanation is how you preserve precious energy to nourish the internal composure. Silence brings you an absolute freedom, a freedom no longer imprisoned by the world's gaze. You no longer wait for others to understand you, to feel relieved. No longer wait for the world to be fair, to feel secure. You become the master of the kingdom of consciousness, where silence has filtered out all the dust of gossip. I want you to close your eyes and let the most powerful mantra of this talk sink deep into every cell. Your silence never needs to be explained, because that silence itself is already the most complete understanding. Do not fear that silence will make you forgotten. On the contrary, in that holy stillness, the voice of your essence will sound most clearly. You do not need to speak to be seen. Do not need to explain to be loved. When your mind is as quiet as a blank sheet of paper, the whole universe will automatically write on it poems of peace. Tonight, allow yourself to withdraw into this precious silence so the soul can truly rest in the arms of wisdom. Kindred friend, let our shared words just now quietly settle, like golden dust slowly falling to the bottom of a quiet lake in the middle of a clear night. We have traveled together through 7 paths of letting go to understand that the greatest power of a mindful soul does not lie in the strength of words, but in the depth of silence. Contemplate one last time. The moment you courageously close the door of justifications and explanations is precisely the moment you are performing a great rebirth for yourself. By stopping the explanation, you do not lose your voice. On the contrary, you are reclaiming the precious life essence that has long been leaking through the disturbances of gossip. You reclaim the peace that was imprisoned by the craving to be understood. And more importantly than all, you reclaim yourself, a serene, steady essence that no longer needs to look in the mirror through the eyes of the world to know who it is. In the Buddha's wisdom, words are sometimes just an outer shell, while the truth is always present in pure silence. You do not owe the world a single clarification for your own peace. Remember this before we temporarily part. Not everything noble needs to be spoken. There are truths that only truly become powerful and radiant when cherished and protected by you in the absolute stillness of the heart. Tonight, when the lights are out and the space in this foreign land becomes quiet, I invite you to smile at yourself. Let this silence soothe you into a deep sleep where there is no courtroom, no why questions, only you and a complete wholeness. If today's talk touched your heart, I invite you to share an idea of peace in the comments and press the subscribe button so we continue to accompany each other on the journey of awakening. May your mind always be composed, your intellect always shining, and every passing day be a radiant liberation. Goodbye, and wishing you a truly peaceful night.